Hey guys, so today I'm going to be talking about every single First Doctor episode, and I'm going to put them in this ranked tier list. We have 7 tiers today. Certified Classic, which, self-explanatory, means it's like one of the best. Good, which is, I generally enjoyed the story. I thought it was really good. Could have been shorter. Overall, I like the story, but I think they could have trimmed it down by a couple episodes. Lame. It was kind of, I didn't really like it that much. Um, I'd probably advise skipping it for most people, especially casual fans. They don't have to watch it. Dumb. This is just outright bad. I didn't like the episode. Bad. It's like worse than dumb. It's just bad. And then we have Z for Zombie, which I bet you guys could guess what's going down now. Okay, starting off, I think the show starts off on not the best foot with Unhealthy Child. This is going in the lame tier. I think episode 1 does a really good job at setting the series up and introducing our characters and the main plot. Episodes 2 through 4 really struggle because it's just them running around in circles in caveman times. It's extremely boring. Did not need to be. They didn't really need to be there. They could have just skipped from this, like episode 1 of Unhealthy Child, straight into the Daleks. Speaking of the Daleks, I'd say that's a good episode, it's pretty solid, decent. I like the characterization, like the development that goes on between the Doctor and Ian and Barbara. And the Daleks are pretty threatening in the first appearance, and I really like how deep Terry Nation delves into like their conflict with the Thals. Overall, very good story. You know, I definitely recommend it for people who are at least curious. It's kind of slow in some paces, but I think they make up for it in like good writing. Moving on to the Edge of Destruction. This is kind of lame. People like the story a lot, and I could never really get into it. I think it's too like fake deep, and all the characters seem like out of character. Like I get that that's the point, but like it goes way too hammy, way too fast, and I'm just not a big fan of it. I think Hartnell does a pretty good performance though, but he always does a good performance, so that's not really saying much. Could have been shorter. Goes to Marco Polo. Now I might be a little biased because none of the episodes exist, so it was just a bunch of still photographs the entire time. But even still, while I like the plot, I like the characters, especially the side characters. I feel like it did not need to be 7 episodes. Well, it could have worked better as like a 4-parter or even a 3-parter. Probably a 4-parter would have been the best, but yeah, no way did it need to be 7 parts. Though I do think the acting was really good, and I like how it delves into like Susan's character and stuff. The Keys of Mayones also could have been shorter. I get what they were going for with like every episode having their own little adventure, but it kind of gets old quickly. Could have worked better as a 4-parter. Also, William Hartnell wasn't even there for most of it, so and he's like the best part of the show. Though it does give Barbara and Ian a lot to do, so that's nice. But yeah, not the best. Moving on to the Aztecs, I think this is a pretty good episode. Probably a highlight for Barbara's character because, like, she's a history teacher, so she already knows about the Aztecs, so she's able to kind of blend in as the goddess. And it has this ethical dilemma where, like, she wants to save people from getting, um, she wants to save people from getting sacrificed, but the doctor's like, "No, Barbara, you can't change history, not one line." It's a really good story. It shows how like compassionate Barbara is, and also like shows the soft side of the Doctor too. I really like when he has those sweet moments with his companions. By now, he's definitely mellowed out as the Doctor, and he's slowly becoming less of like grumpy old man and more of like just fun, kooky old scientist guy. Okay, moving on to the Sensorites. This is just plain dumb. I didn't really like any of it. Very boring. I think the Sensorites had a pretty good design though, considering how like old this is. They have a pretty good design, and I like the set of the spaceship and how most of it took place within the spaceship. But the downside is like it's just 3 hours of like nothing. Really, there's really nothing going on here, and I didn't like it at all. I think Susan gets a lot to do here, so at least there's that. She's pretty much sidelined in most of her episodes, but she gets a lot to do here, so that's good. The Raina Tale, also pretty bad. I think the set design is pretty good, and the acting was good, but overall, very forgettable story. Did not need to be this long, and honestly, it did not need to be here at all. It's just so boring. It's like there's really lack of a plot. Just the characters doing one thing after another. And I know that's what like serialized television was back then, but still, like I feel like the other episodes, especially these, are a lot better. Also, Hartnell's gone for most of it as well. Okay, moving on to season two. Starting off with Planet of Giants. This one's pretty lame. Didn't like this one that much. Starts off good, but then they like realize that like this premise doesn't really go anywhere. Like it's just him, just trying to solve this mortal mystery and try not to get eaten by a cat. Except it keeps going on and on and on and on and on and on. It's like this, it's roast and could have been shorter. It's just lame. Like I feel like there wasn't enough potential going on. Um, but thankfully, that's followed up with the Dalek Invasion of Earth, which I think is a certified classic. You know, classic. People who want to get into classic Doctor Who should definitely check this one out. It's like this political thriller where the Daleks come to Earth in the future. It's like an apocalyptic thing. The budget, I could tell they had like a really big budget for these episodes. Like there's a lot of filmed outside scenes, which is pretty rare for Hartnell's era. Barbara gets a lot to do, Ian gets a lot to do, Susan gets a lot to do, and this is the last episode with Susan, and she goes out with a bang. We really get like that resolution to her arc. The entire series is like wanted a place to belong because he's always in the TARDIS. He never really had a home. So in this one, she does get a home, and of course that speech Hartnell makes before she leaves is so sweet. Like he could do those sentimental moments so well. I think and of course Carol Ann Ford did a great job in that episode as well. Speaking of that, I met her very briefly at a con, and she was pretty nice. Moving on to The Rescue, which was could have been shorter. I liked The Rescue, and it's funny saying that as there's only two parts, but I feel like there's not enough punch to it. But honestly, it doesn't need that much of a punch because the whole story is focused on introducing Vicky, and while not much happens in the story, I don't know. I think Vicky's an engaging character, not really because of the way she's written. She's written very flatly, but I think Maureen O'Brien plays her very well. So at least there's that. But that after that comes the worst episode in Hartnell's run, the Red Planet. This episode like aggravates me. It's so bad. The the sets look okay. I would say at least they're trying something different. At least they're taking risks. But yeah, I'm kind of surprised this episode even got made. Um, like nobody thought this was a bad idea. I don't know. The voices are annoying. The costumes look awful. They like bump into the camera. The plot is complete nonsense. There is no plot really. The It just aggravates me. I don't even want to talk about this episode. I don't even want to think about this episode. Moving on to the Crusade, which is kind of lame as well. Not much happens in the Crusade. Did I skip an episode? Oh my god, I skipped an episode. I skipped the Romans, which it's a good episode. It's very funny, and I think we needed a lighthearted episode after like the dramatic Dalek invasion of Earth. So the rescue and the Romans kind of fit as like one little six-part arc, and most of it's just them chilling out in the Roman era, and it's pretty funny, honestly, for the most part. I think the subplot where Barbara gets like sexually harassed for like 3 episodes straight is not fun. Did not like that one. But besides that, I like the scene where the doctor's like trying to play an instrument and he says like only the best tuned people could hear it and everybody just pretends like they could hear it. That was really funny. But yeah, pretty good story. Besides the Barbara subplot. Okay, so yeah, then came to Red Planet, and then after that came the Crusade, which is pretty lame. I'm not a big fan of the Crusade. It's very boring, and yeah, honestly, I can't remember much of what happened in it. um, it's like King Richard, and you know, has it has Julian Glover on it, and he's like a really good actor. Those of you might know him from the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and he comes back later in City of Death. So he's a pretty well-known actor. And Jean Moses is in this, but she's not playing Sarah Kingdom. She's playing some other lady. But besides the memorable cast, it really doesn't stick out to me at all. Moving on to the Space Museum, this goes in the could have been shorter category. Um, I didn't hate the Space Museum. I thought it was pretty good. It starts off really good, but then it kind of slowly loses steam because after this like really unique Twilight Zone-esque premise, they don't really know what to do with it. So it's just them running around in circles for the for the rest of it. It just slowly gets old. Um, but I don't know. Hartnell's pretty good. I like the scene where he pretends to be a Dalek just to spook the others for some reason. I think he was hiding, but yeah. Anyway, the chase. This is basically the Daleks chasing the Doctor and his companions around for 6 episodes straight. Not much happens. There's some good scenes, some bad scenes. I think it starts off really good and it ends really good. It's just those episodes in the middle. They don't really know what to do with it. It could have been 4 episodes. I think would have been fine. Um, this episodes, I like the fight with the mechanoids. That looks really good, especially for the 60s. Really well directed, I'd say. And I really like the farewell to Ian and Barbara. It kind of concludes the whole arc of the series so far of them wanting to go home, and it's sweet. Throughout the series, I really like Ian and Barbara, so them getting a happy ending is just great, and it's I don't know, it's like you're filled with joy watching it. And Hartnell's last scene where he talks about how he missed them is really sweet because like you could tell William Hartnell did really get along with those guys, and he will miss them. But yeah, overall, could have been shorter, but when it shines, it really does shine. Moving on to the Time Metal, which is another certified classic. Like if you want to talk about your top three Hartnell stories, Time Metal will definitely be one of them. So this introduces the meddling monk, and they go to Viking times, and also we get introduced to Stephen, who kind of stood away at the end of the chase. But this is his full like main story, and I like Stephen. I think he's really good, especially him and Vicky. They don't have many stories together, but like I really like this trio, and I wish they stayed around longer. But yeah, the Time Meddler, so like another Time Lord goes back to Viking times and tries to change history, and the Doctor has to stop him. And it's kind of cool because it's the first time we see another Time Lord, so the Doctor has to like outwit someone who's just as smart as he is, and it's really cool. Um, Despite Hartnell not being in it that much, it's still like a really great story because I love Peter Butterworth's portrayal of the monk. Very comical, but also like unique at the same time. And Stephen and Vicky really carry the story. And I like how they like. I think it's one of the best episodes where they're able to put like real world events in a sci-fi style. That's really cool as well. It's really atmospheric. You actually feel like you are there in the Viking era. The stock footage helps with that as well. And I love how the Doctor outwits the time meddler at the end, the monk at the end by you know, uh, putting the TARDIS so like it's smaller on the inside. That's really cool. Moving on to season 3, we start off with Galaxy 4. I don't like Galaxy 4. There's really nothing to like about it. It's just very boring, and the whole thing about like, oh, don't judge a book by its cover. The beautiful women are actually evil. It's like, wow, who could have seen that one coming? Has the depth of a Doorman episode. Though I do think the Chumblies are kind of cute. And Vicky gives it a lot to do here too, which is good because, I like Vicky. Moving on to Mission of the Unknown. This one honestly could have been shorter, even though it's only one episode. It could have just been like a 10-minute prelude. Um, not much happens in here besides like meeting the um Mavic Chen's people. I don't even think Mavic Chen's in this one. It's more about like it's kind of just a prologue to the Dalek's master plan, and it's very oddly placed because you have this, the Myth Makers, then the Dalek's master plan. So that's really confusing. Um, but I think it's okay as a standalone episode. It's pretty experimental in the fact that you have none of our main characters in it. So the whole episode is just these like side characters we never see again. Which is interesting, but a little boring. Moving on to the Myth Makers, also could have been shorter. I like the Myth Makers. I think it's a really good story, but it takes a really long time to get going. That last episode is amazing, but those first three episodes is kind of a slog to get through. Um, Vicky leaves in this episode, and it's really sad because I like Vicky, and I feel like she never really like reached her full potential, mainly due to the writing at the time, like the way she was written. Um, because I don't know, she was she just kind of stood around. She didn't really do that much, but Marina O'Brien was really good playing her. And I think this is a pretty good exit. How she decides to stay in Troy because he gets connected to the dude. And the doctor's like, you could tell he's really upset about it. And this is the start of like a darker era of the show because the first three episodes are just like lollygagging around, and then episode four is like this complete massacre, and it gets super dark super quickly. I do like that. It reminds me of Parasite. But overall, it could have just been like a two-parter, I think. Like part one's the funny, fun stuff, and then part four is the really dark stuff. Moving on to the Daleks Master Plan. This is a really good episode. Not a sort of like classic because like there's some parts I don't like about it, like that whole middle section where they just it's just kind of a repeat of the chase. But the beginning is so dark for like Doctor Who, where like people are just getting gunned down left and right. Brett Vaughn's getting gunned down by his own sister, then she becomes a companion. Katarina gets killed like immediately after she's introduced in the last episode in a very horrifying way. She chucks herself out of the airlock to save the crew, and you're like, oh my god! And you see her body floating through space with those weird, like loose cannon effects, very eerie. That was like horrifying. I can't believe that aired on children's television in the '60s. Very rough way to die. Speaking of rough ways to die, Sarah Kingdom dying at the end was also insane. How she like slowly ages to death and becomes like a skeleton and then turns into dust. That sounds painful. Oh my god, that was rough. um, but really good episode. I like Maverick Chen as a villain, despite the obvious racism of him being just a white dude in yellow face. He's still a very captivating villain. Which honestly, like, why didn't you just name him Mark Smith, Mark something? I don't know why him being yellow face had anything to do with the story. But still, really good villain. Very creepy too. But of course, when you team up with the Daleks, nothing ever goes right. And the Daleks are the most threatening here because they kill off so many like supporting characters and main characters. It's really good. I wish more of it survived because only 3 out of the 12 survive. But yeah, some of those episodes don't really advance the plot that much. But as a whole, I think it's a really good episode. Moving on to the Massacre. This one's pretty dark as well. This one's really dark. It's also could have been shorter though. I think 4 episodes is a little too much. Could have just been three. Considering the Doctor isn't even in it that much, like William Hartnell's not in it that much, but he also plays two characters. I f- I like the concept where like you think the Doctor dies, but it's actually just somebody who looks just like the Doctor. Stephen carries this episode because the Doctor's not really in it that much. But I think that works. Like it shows how like depressed Stephen is and how desperate he is to save the day after the Daleks' master plan after he lost like so many people. So it's a really good follow up of that. Like you have the really dark Daleks master plan, and then the also very dark massacre, which of course ends in a massacre. And then Dodo shows up, and it's like, what does this have to do with the rest of the story? Besides the fact that she's the great 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 niece of the lady who may or may not have died, which I still don't really understand if that's a niece, but and if it's her grandmother, why didn't she change her maiden name as was common back then? But whatever. Just gonna ignore that. Moving on to the arc. Also could have just been a two-parter. I think it's pretty interesting though because the first two episodes, the aliens are the slaves and the humans are the people in charge, and then they leave, and you think that's the end of the episode, but then they come back, and it's like 200 years later or whatever, and now it's flipped. So the aliens are in charge and the humans are the slaves. That's pretty neat. But I feel like they don't do enough with this premise, despite the fact that the sets look really good for this episode. It looks really futuristic and kind of dystopian. I like it. Um, Moving on to the Celestial Toymaker. This is the pinnacle of dumb. I hate this episode. We'll get into a little bit of a bad batch here. Yeah, I didn't like this one at all. I like the Toymaker and I like Alfred Pennyworth playing him, but like it's just so stupid. None of the plot makes sense. It's just a bunch of goofy nonsense after another. Um, I wish it survived because that animation looked terrible, so I just watched the reconstruction instead. But yeah, Hartnell's also not in it that much, and I get it because like at this point he's kind of sick, so they try to write him out of the stories. But yeah, Steven and Dodo don't exactly carry it. I do like Dodo. I think she's pretty underrated, but this story doesn't really do anything for me. Also, like it annoyed me too, like that like one guy who could play like three different characters. He annoyed me. Anyway, moving on to an episode that annoys me even more. The gunfire rules. This episode fucking sucked. Oh my god. That stupid song I played over and over again. The awful American accents. The lackluster plot. Um, Nobody in that show could do an American accent. And I know everybody's like, oh, the British could do a better American accent than the Americans could do a British accent. It's like, are you sure about that? Are you really sure about that? Like, just show them this episode. I can't believe out of all the Hallmark episodes that are missing, this one survives. Why couldn't it have been like, I don't know, this one, or this one, or this one, or this one, or this one? Like, why is it this one and this one? Like, why? Fate is so cruel to us. Moving on to the Savages. I really don't remember this one that much, and it's only been a couple months since I've watched it. I like how Steven kind of like comes into his own here, and he has like this really heroic exit where he goes to save people and stuff. Um, but it's a very like lackluster plot. It's like, oh, hold on a minute, the smart people are the evil ones, and the primitive savages are the good ones, and they're draining their lives. It's like, oh my god, whoop de doo, never saw that one coming. Though I think it is kind of chilling when the doctor gets lobotomized. That's kind of crazy. Gets over it pretty quickly though, but I guess that could be explained because he's a Time Lord. But overall, pretty lame story. Though I do like Steven's exit. Moving on to the War Machine. Where's the War Machine? Oh, the War Machine. Yeah, that's a pretty good story. I'm glad this one survives. I don't like how they abruptly write off Dodo in the middle of the episode. We don't even get to see her say goodbye. It's very random. You could tell there was like some behind the scenes drama. But I liked Dodo for what it's worth. Justice for Dodo. Maybe I'll write like a Dodo book talking about what happened to Dodo. Anyway, besides that whole fiasco, the story itself is really good. It's like the Doctor's in the 60s, and you really get that like swinging 60s vibe that isn't really prevalent because a lot of like none of Hartnell's episodes until now was set in the present. This becomes much more prevalent in the second Doctor's era and especially the third Doctor's era, but this is like the only one where the entire thing is set in the present. And we meet Polly and Ben, and there's like this evil postman making this war machine, and the war machine, of course, starts mind controlling people, and a lot of mind control in the Ennis Lloyd era of the show. So I guess Ennis was a big fan of mind control. But yeah, pretty solid story. I really like the part where like everybody's running away from the war machine and the doctor just stands up to him like, not today, Sonny. And considering how late this was in Hartnell's era, he does such a great performance in this. And Polly and Ben are a great addition to the show. So moving on to the smugglers, this one was pretty bad. I cannot remember a single thing that happened in this episode, besides the fact that they were pirates and they were just running around. And like barely any of it actually takes place on a pirate ship. So you're like, what was the point? Um, Also, none of this survives, so it's kind of hard to tell what's happening. It's not really fault of the episode itself; it's just the fault of like the BBC junking it. But yeah, honestly, very lame episode. Did not like this one at all. Moving on to the final Hartnell episode, which is also one of his best, The 10th Planet. These three episodes are definitely like my top three. Um, this episode introduces the Cybermen. No, very threatening. I really love these primitive Cybermen. Um, they look the most human. They have like this creepy sing-songy voice, like a child. Um, Very merciless and like sociopathic. And I like the crew of the base, the North Pole base or South Pole base. Um, they're very well developed, and I think that's good because Hartnell's barely in this episode as well. So like you need a really good strong supporting cast. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's great. Very intense. And this episode would be great, but it makes it even better is like Hartnell's, it's final outing for Hartnell. Despite the fact that he's not in it that much, he has a really good ending where he says like, "Oh, it's not awful. It's far from being all over." If only he knew, because like, oh, holy shit, he was not wrong. The show's on season 40 now, 41 next year. So yeah, if only he knew. But yeah, that's all 29 of Hartnell's episodes. I think he was a great doctor and oddly unappreciated or just underrated, considering the fact that, like, he's the first doctor, so you'd think he'd be more higher rated, but nobody really talks about him that much. Probably because half his episodes are missing. But I really enjoyed my time watching his episodes. He was a great doctor, great actor. His companion's pretty hit or miss, but I especially liked Ian and Barbara and Polly and Ben and Steven. The other ones were kind of hit or miss, though. So, yeah, rest in peace, William Hartnell. Tomorrow I'm going to do my review of The Power of the Daleks, and spoiler alert, I'm honestly like 2 seasons into Troughton's run. I just pre-record these videos in case I go a while without making a video. So honestly, I'm on like Fury of the Deep right now, but we got a long way to go. So I'm gonna post a Troughton review every single Thursday till I finish. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.